Hello, all you comic book aficionados, cool cats, kittens, seasoned veterans of the hobby, and new people. What's up? How are you doing? It's an actual video. This past weekend, went with a buddy named Josh. Went to the Carolina Vintage Comic Book Show. I believe that's where it is. I thought it was going to be in Winston-Salem. Turned out to be in a little small town around it. Great show, great little show. And what amazed me is that they actually had wrestlers walk in. After we get to the parking lot, walk around the building, down a hallway, we walk in, pay our money, see some comic books lined up around the wall, and as I'm looking around, in my line of sight is George South, the wrestler, if you guys who know who that is. If you follow me on Instagram, sorry I'm out of breath, I just came down the steps doing some stuff. Now here we go. But if you know comic book, if you know wrestling, especially from the 80s, NWA, WCW, George South is a bit of a enhancement talent legend, if you will, right? So I got my picture with him. If you have me on Instagram, Howler Mouse, you've probably already seen some of the stuff I'm about to show, and you see a picture of me with George South. Big shout out to Josh for meeting me, driving me, and he got me a birthday dinner. He refused to let me pay for our lunch, so thank you so much, man. Not only did we hit that show, but we also hit a store named McKay's. McKay's is a glorious secondhand store. It's a chain, and basically they get their stock, and it can be pulps, novels, softback, hardbacks, any and every kind of book you can think of. Action figures, toys, video games, CDs, graphic novels, comic books, anything and everything. And everything is secondhand. People bring in their stuff. I've never taken anything there, so I don't know if they get paid for it or if they get store credit. I don't know how it works. But you bring your stuff in, and then that's where they get their stock. So I ended up getting some great things, British editions, if you will, right? If you watched me over the weekend, I am currently recording this on March 16th, 2023. I do a lot of live shows, doing a proper video now. Hopefully the sound is working. Anyway, I had a great weekend. You can go back and watch the live show. This should be the thumbnail. But I got this in trade for what I consider some pretty common comics. A bunch of Martin Pascal Swamp Thing, Mark Miller, Grant Morrison Swamp Thing, and then some odds and ends. Two trades I got in Ollie's. Well, one trade I got in Ollie's for like $4. Another trade that I got at a flea market for $2. But I did not rip the guy off. He had this up for $250, offered me $150, and then I said, what about trade? And he told me what he wanted, so I got him some Swamp Thing and 2 issues of Doctor Strange and some odds and ends. $20 is probably what it cost to me over the years so basically I got this in trade, and you know the story behind that or you don't. Got this for $12, talked him down for $15, and he threw in all this stuff. And if you look on the back of these, all these books, we're selling $7 to $10 at some point in time. They have a price tag on the back. Great weekend, right? So I have at least one book that is on par with those. In my eyes, in my mind, it surpasses it. So I will show you the big book that I got at the comic book show, right? So just to get these out of the way, at the McKay's, this was glorious to find. About maybe 10 years ago, I was at a comic book convention, and there was this lady sitting there. She wasn't haggling. It was more like she was arguing with a dealer who had a short box of British reprint books. That was 2000 AD stuff, and it's how they printed them over here in miniseries and ongoing series and stuff called Eagle, and I think the other one was Quality, right? And the whole box was full of that stuff. Well, she was going back and forth with the guy trying to get a price. This went on for over 20 minutes because I went other places. I went back, and I just butted in. I was like, here's $10, and he gave it to me, and the girl was like, what? I was working on something here. I'm like, I've got to go. You've been working on this forever. So yeah, I busted in there, and then when I did the my recording, or however I did it back then, showing some of those books, like I said 10 years ago, there was some Strontium Dog in there, and I knew it was by the same people who created Judge Dredd, but I'm not versed in it, and I kind of said I felt like Strontium Dog was a little bit of a ripoff of Judge Dredd. Backlash. Deservedly so, and I am very humbled to say that I was wrong, because Johnny Alpha is the stuff, alright? But anyway, I found these British editions that I've already bagged and stuff of Strontium Dog. Looks like they came out in the 2000s, so these were very cool to find. There were 5 of them, but I went with the first 3 because they were in much better shape and a little bit cheaper than the rest, right? Now, what really got me? Beautiful covers. I already started reading one of them, but what really got me is when I got home and started looking. May not show up, but yeah, there it is. But it's the Pound. I would love to know how these books came from England across the pond into a little store in North Carolina. That blows my mind. Also from over there in England and stuff were these. Absolutely love these. Asterix, the Legionary. Asterix and Obelix. Quite a staple over there. This thing is huge. I think this is like 53 million copies in print worldwide over decades and decades. So these were extremely cool to find. I think there's like 35 volumes. You can find 5 live movies I think they've made of this series. Tons of cartoons. I find them on YouTube when I can watch them. And I remember seeing these on my friends when I was a kid who had the Disney Channel because, they had money. I remember watching some of those. That's where those came from. So those were fantastic finds that I'm very happy about. All right. On with the haul. So these are from the comic book haul. And some of these are upgrades, right? But I got all of these, a bunch of these. I probably spent, not counting the big key book I'm going to show you, but this whole stack I want to show you probably came to about $35, which blows my mind, except for a few other books, and I'll tell you how much those were, right? So anyway, we got to get that Sienkiewicz New Mutants. Now, if there is a mutant book that is the staple of the 80s, something that I can look at and it takes me back, it is definitely Sienkiewicz New Mutants with Chris Claremont. Totally changed the tone of the book with the Demon Bear stuff when he came in, right? So yeah, I always get these. These are upgrades, I guess newsstand if that's what you're worried about. Let's go up here, keep in order. Number 31, there you go. This is some minor key, I think. I don't know. But this book in particular, number 50, I really needed this in my collection. Because this is pretty cool, okay? This has cameos. They do the whole, first of all, magic. What Chris Claremont was doing with magic was fantastic with Limbo, the demons building up to probably the fall of the mutants that were coming out. They had come out of the Morlock Massacre, Secret Wars 2 crossovers in the 30s. So anyway, we get to this, and we have Sim there. That character is a wink and a nod and a joke on David Sim of Cerebus for reasons. But the other thing that's really cool about this is when you go through this, they do the whole Star Wars bar. There's some characters out in space, I believe, or something, right? I got to read it. But this is infamous for me because I like the eclectic stuff. I like those little gems. I like that little trivia that you're not going to find on speculation channels and that kind of thing. This is the art of comics, my friend. This is the collecting of it, right? If you love this stuff, right? But there's cameos. They have a little Star Wars bar. 2 people are looking for a ride or a bounty hunter or something. And in that bar are the cameos of Tim Truman and I think John Ostrander's Grimjack, wink and a nudge. The Herculoids and various members of the Micronauts, because Jackson Geiss was drawing this issue as a guest penciler, I guess, and I think he was still working on the Micronauts at the time. We're going back to 85. I mean, not 85, but what year is this? 1987, so a little spotty there. So anyway, there's that. That's cool, right? So fantastic. Then when I run across going through dollar boxes and I find anything Bronze Age, yeah, I'll buy a little Thongar from Creatures on the Loose. Who knows, right? Who knows, right? And then I've got a soft spot for Epic Comics. I also have a soft spot for their Nightbreed and Clive Barker and Hellraiser magazines. So I have two or three little miniseries and stuff they come out with that's incomplete, and now I'm starting another one. So here we go with Clive Barker's Book of the Damned and Clive Barker's Book of the Damned 2. I have not looked up to see how many of these there are, but I'll always pick those up, right? And this cracks me up. I think I left one of them behind, basically either because I had it or it was a director's cut. If you don't know about the Immortal Hulk, the first couple issues were re-released as director cuts and stuff, right? With extra stuff in it. But it cracks me up. I will buy Immortal Hulk all day long out of the dollar bins. I have gotten over 3/4 of the series by now, a couple doubles and stuff. But I see people paying big bucks for their Immortal Hulk. Patience is a virtue. I'm actually thinking about doing a video where I'm going to give you tips on if you're starting to collect because of some things that happened at McKay's when I was talking to some people. Now, I'm taking my time finding these. I'm not really worried if they're any good or not, but it seems like we have a little. I really like this when I see the big picture. Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightston had a big hit with a 4-issue prestige miniseries called The Cult. Well, I don't know if this is around the same time. I'm going to have to do a little digging and stuff to mirror it. But this is Punisher POV. Probably about a year or two ago, I found an issue or two. I think it's 4 issues. But it is by Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightston. So all day long, I will grab these. The proper 80s Punisher, right where I think he peaked, to be honest with you. Sorry if you're a Punisher fan. But there's always time to rejuvenate the character, right? And then I'm getting into my pulps. I'm reading a lot of the Wald Newton, Philip Jose Farmer stuff. Right now, I am in one setting. I sat through a book called The Peerless Peer. It is a novel where Watson is writing a new adventure of Sherlock Holmes. And if you got a wink and a wink and a nod, you're going to recognize the spider in the spirit in World War One. In their pulps. Walt Newton is where he thank League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and that's where Alan Moore got the idea, if you will, right? But anyway, the spider is an old pulp character. I do know enough to know that when somebody got the idea of coming up with a new radio pulp character kind of guy, that they went to see a lawyer to make sure they couldn't get sued because they didn't want to rip off the Shadow. And the lawyer told them, you need to take an established character and change him in the story. So Tim Truman coming on here and doing the spider. I'm really starting to get into that pulp stuff, mainly because of some of the people that I talk to in comics online and in the real world, and plus because of what I'm reading. By the way, that Peerless Peer, if I can finish this thought, basically has Sherlock Holmes and Tarzan teaming up. So yeah, I'm gonna get that all day long. This cracks me up. It is a second print. The person selling this had 3 of these. This is the ash can for Frank Miller's Presents. Number 1 was hot when it came out. I guess it's I have 1 or 2 first prints. I'm not going to rehash those stories. If you watch my live shows, as I get these things, I tell you the story. And he had 3 of these, and I was just real suspicious on why he was trying to sell them. He's trying to get me to pick up all 3 of them. I get home, second print. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I have a reader's copy. And then, as we know, I am tracking through Grendel. Got 2 omnibus, because Dark Horse is putting out, I think it's Dark Horse, is putting out all the Grendel stories in chronological order, story-wise, starting with Hunter Rose, Comico, on and on and on, and the Dark Horse stuff, whatever. So I pick these up whenever I find them. I've actually acquired a short box of Grendel books. I'm trying to plug in to why it has such a rabid fan following and stuff. I've had friends for years here on YouTube, Scotty X, Tylox, a whole bunch of people taught the Tylox the Mighty. You might know some of these names. Some come gone, some have come back, and everything like that. But it was time. So War Child, going back to the early 90s. And then an interesting story that I just got through reading in Volume 2, Devil Child with Grendel, which is Tim Sale art from the 90s. Yep. Shiny bags, right? I love my Elric. You know how I feel about my Elric here. So I ended up finding this at McKay's for $1.25. The Mike Mignola variant cover of Elric the Dreaming City, where these Titan comics are retelling these stories with different art. I have tons and tons of library editions, the actual novels, collected editions. Elric's been in my life since I was about 5, one way or the other, right? Speaking of Mike Mignola, I don't know why I got this. But a little bit of an impulse buy. But anyway, this is Almost Colossus 2-part miniseries. Now, it's interesting why that I bought a floppy. This thing must have been like $1 or something. Just went through there. Because I've just kept a handful of my actual Hellboy books, comics. Because I collect the collected editions. I've got 2 library editions. Because when these get put in trade or in these library editions, Mike Mignola will go in and add extra pages to help with the pacing and things like that. So it's great to have the floppies, but if you want the complete Hellboy and the complete stories, you need to do a little research on the trades and stuff, right? Pick up these all the time. The Dark Horse Aliens, another Earth War book. We won't go into that too much. And this is like my 4th copy of this, right? Now, I was actually working in a comic book shop. Archer and Armstrong #0 had come out. That's what's popping in my head. I'm trying to go back and remember. So it was probably 92. I was actually working at Hardee's and a comic book shop. It would be soon after that I would take off and travel for 9 months. Anyway, so when the Valiant hit, I lucked up. I was able to be there for Unity. Kind of missed the first year. Had to back up, try to get a few things. And then there's an era after Jim Shooter where I was sort of dipping out and I was on the road and stuff. And some hot books came out. You couldn't get a hold of them, but I had Bloodshot 0, which is a huge Valiant book. But this is like the 4th, in like 2-3 years, this is the 4th copy of Bloodshot #6. This got hot for half a minute because it's the first appearance of Ninjak. Here he is in costume on a cover for the first time, where they were talking about like Valiant was going to try to get into the movies or TV shows or something, right? And we all see how well the Bloodshot movie went. Do you remember it? Do you remember it? It's okay if you don't. But anyway, and then this is one of my favorite comic book covers of all time. The Purples, the Mood, Barry Windsor Smith, Solar Man of the Atom #5. This is probably my 3rd or 4th copy. So always looking for the upgrades, which is fantastic, right? Now we're getting into some DC stuff if you've kept up, right? And these are just plugging in holes, my friend. Plugging in holes. I love my Justice League, and time has made me a little bit more forgiving about certain runs of this book, considering the state of comics since 52, and then a little bit of an upswing, and then the last couple of years where, Power Pack and the Universe are like gold standards now with what those books did if you put them side by side with a lot of stuff going on out there now. But anyway, finishing up, I got this Jin Ha variant cover of Justice League #11, the Brad Meltzer year in the 2000s. #12, I thought I had this. I probably have this, but there were 3 covers by Alex Ross that all connect, as you can see, where they cut off the characters. The hard one to find I think has Power Girl or something on the cover. I don't know. And I thought I had this, and I may still have this. It may just not be in my app, but I'm always completing these crossovers from yesteryear. And this is the Justice Society, Last Days of the Justice Society, which does sort of plug into Crisis. It was like, what do we do with these heroes now that Crisis has rebooted everything, right? Interesting fact about this is that even if you're not wanting the Crisis tie-in, this was actually plugged into Neil Gaiman's Sandman at one point. A little trivia there for you. You got to be quick. You got to have your eyes open to find it. Okay. Completing this run, one of the things I'm trying to do is right before the 52 came out, back in 2010, 11, whenever they did that, James Robinson had come on the Justice League book. The JSA book kind of, they handed it to Bill Willingham and some other people. Some of these books that were fantastic and got their stuff together, they started doing things where they're taking liberties with them, doing different stuff. Well, it's because they knew a reboot was coming, even though we didn't know it. So now with that knowledge, I love James Robinson, the writer, basically because of his Golden Age miniseries in the early 90s, and then the staple book of the 90s, in my opinion, Starman. But he came on and he started doing some different stuff here with the Justice League of America. They made Mon-El more or less Superman. We had Dick Grayson being Batman, the Titans growing up, and he came on and they added Congarilla and then Michael, the alien Starman. He made a whole new Justice League and did a little run all the way up to issue 60 where they ended the series, so I'm completing that now. Mark Bagley was on here, little crossover. Thought I had this one, but they crossed over with Justice Society, Justice League like they used to, connecting covers, some great stuff. So if you're a Justice League fan, I'm going back and I'm kind of rereading those. They even had the Crime Syndicate show up with an Ethan Van Sciver cover. And then we're plugging in some holes here, but this is a key. I need one more issue of Deathstroke because it's part of a Total Chaos crossover I was collecting when I was working in said comic book shop, right? I don't know where it's at over the years. And apparently it's a key now because it's got Rose Walker, the first appearance of Rose Walker in it, right? But anyway, I found this one, knew this was a key. And with the way James Gunn stuck the original, that was not the Vigilante. That was Vigilante in costume only in his Peacemaker show. But this was, if you read, I got the last issue, but the Vigilante had one of the darkest endings to a character that I can ever think of. I mean, I was like, whoa, talk about ending it. But anyway, we had the new Vigilante pop up in Deathstroke number 10 here. Who knows? Who knows? The way they bring in these eclectic characters. Filling in a gap with the all-new Dr. Fate by James DeMontes and Sean McManus, number 5. I think I got a cool run on this. I'm not going to go on. I'm ready to talk about the series. And before that, they had the miniseries, The Immortal Dr. Fate, that kind of ran into, that led up to the ongoing series, right? A lot of these were not on the spinner rack when I was a kid and I was interested. Dr. Fate has been one of the, in its pure costume and All-Star Squadron and some of my adventure comics that reprinted some Golden Age stories and stuff. But Dr. Fate has always been that character for me. I remember when the Superpowers action figures came out with Wave 2. I think I was like about 10 or 11, maybe, I don't know. But it was so surreal to see a commercial showing off the new figures, and there's a Dr. Fate figure. So surreal to me. I'm like, I didn't even know people knew who Dr. Fate was. I felt like I was the only one, you know. But anyway, so yeah, Dr. Fate. Like I said, just plugging them in and stuff, right? All day long. Yes, they did not complete the series. Yes, there may be people out there rolling their eyes at this with Frank Miller and Jim Lee and wondered if Frank Miller was trolling us and stuff, right? But I think this is a Frank Miller cover on Batman. I will pick those up all day long. And I cannot remember if this was a variant or not. I don't know. I know I bowed out of the series and got rid of them. Second copy of this just because I love it. I bought this when it came out. I'm going to see which of these books are in better shape because I want a reader copy. But Superman Speeding Bullets. And yes, that is Batman. And if you have the eye, you know that this is a take on Action Comics number 1. Is that right? Yeah. Watch me be wrong. I'm home from work, guys. I'm a little under the weather. But anyway, this is what if Clark Kent was raised in Gotham. He was found by the Waynes instead of the Kents. And then I thought this was going to complete the series. I know I still have a number 1 somewhere if I can find it. But several issues of Grant Morrison doing Joe the Barbarian. And as you can see, it has a mouse on the cover. So I had to get it. But I remember sort of not really wanting to get that series. And then, of course, I heard people who read it loved it. Going on with the Batman thing, this was, I think this was like $1 Batman Forever movie adaptation, which I'm fine with because the artwork is fantastic in it. Denny O'Neil did it. I'm one of the few people that if I'm in the right mood, I can handle watching that movie, right? And I don't know about you, but it kind of blows my mind to see Drew Barrymore in a comic book. Kind of blows my mind. Little sugar and spice for you. Come on. I don't think that's going to focus. Probably because she's all in white. So yeah, if you watch the movie you know what I'm talking about. This was a quarter, so I now have a reader copy. I probably have 2 complete sets of Cosmic Odyssey. Mike Mignola, Jim Starlin. That needs to be adapted somewhere. And then these were a quarter a piece, so of course I had to have them. I actually bought them when they came out. Got a trade for something like $3.99 at Ollie's of this. Got rid of my other issues and stuff, right? But if you're a Bone fan, Jeff Smith came by and did his reboot of, if you will, of Captain Marvel, Shazam. And he was bragging that in his contract, it is supposed to be, I don't know if they really did this or if they were just saying this to hype up the book. But his version is supposed to be the version of Captain Marvel, forever is what they were talking. Cobra number 1. I will all day long will get this. This is one of the books I had and I still have from the Stepdad's collection. I was reading Cobra when I was like 6 or 7 years old, so this was an upgrade, which blew my mind. And it blows my mind to find any issues of Crisis in dollar boxes, because every issue is, I don't know, worth 10 and up. I don't know. That blows my mind. And then the thing that I really liked about this book, I may have to do a video on it if I can figure out, is that this is an issue of Unwritten, right? A little bit rough shape, but it's number 17. And don't worry if you don't remember Unwritten. It's okay. It was hot when it came out, had its fans, may still have its fans, right? But basically they had a Harry Potter-like character who finds out that he has actually been taken out of an imaginary land, out of the books, and put into the real world. Now, the great thing about this is that Mike Carey, I think it was his name, who came up with this book, played around with some storytelling features, and he made a comic book that you have to read like you did your Choose Your Own Adventures. And that, to me, is just striking. I love when people are innovative with books. That's what keeps the hobby going. So now that we've made it this far, I want to show you the big key we got, right? I'm not going to tell you what I paid for it because it would make Howler Mouse history, but I was feeling good that day. Got a bunch of great deals and had some money left over. Plus, I sold my cassettes, my music cassette collection. Sold it for my music, sold it to a vintage store around here. I'm actually probably going to be getting rid of my VHS collection if anybody cares. It's huge, and I have 2 VCRs. But it's time to make room and stuff. This is my passion. I'm going to probably keep some clamshells, other things I want to do, other things I need the room for, right? But I saw this, and basically, what I sold my cassette collection for is the money that I used for this book. This is a book I never thought I would acquire, and as soon as I'm done recording this, the thing's getting put up. But it was, like I said, this leaves New Teen Titans number 2, first appearance of Deathstroke, and then I'll probably have my Grails and stuff, right? It makes me believe I can do it now and everything like that. But I never thought I would get this book. But anyway, without no further ado, Miracle Man number 15. That Miracle Man book that everybody went nuts for years and years and years. And it's actually held a little bit of value. I know this is one of those books I feel very confident in saying that it's going to stay over $100, no matter how it goes up and down, right? So, yeah, for a bunch of cassettes, I pretty much got this, okay? So thanks, guys. Be excellent to each other, and read your comics.